Caleb had been working on his new farm for nearly 2 weeks, and the loneliness of it all was starting to wear him down. The air was fresh and crisp, the kind of air you could breathe deep into your lungs and feel alive. But there was something else, a feeling that the farm was watching him as if it was waiting for something. The farmhouse was a large old building, its walls covered in ivy, the roof sagging with age. He had bought it for a good price, figuring he could bring it back to life. It wasn't much, but it was his now. Caleb had always wanted a fresh start. He'd been running away from the memories of his past for years, looking for something real, something he could work hard for, something that would give him purpose again. The city had been suffocating, and the idea of farming in the country had always appealed to him. But he never imagined it would be so quiet. Too quiet, in fact. He was used to the noise, the hustle of the city. Out here, all he had were the sounds of wind through the trees, the occasional bird call, and the creak of the old farmhouse as it settled. The first few days were filled with excitement. He repaired broken windows, patched up the leaking roof, and tried to make the house feel like home. But as the days went on, the excitement wore off. There was still so much work to do. Caleb didn't mind hard work. He actually preferred it, but the weight of the silence was getting to him. It was like the farm itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. Then one evening, as Caleb returned to the farmhouse after a long day of repairing the barn, he saw them. 3 figures standing in the yard, silhouetted against the setting sun. They were tall, much taller than any women Caleb had ever seen. They were dressed in long, worn clothes, their hair tied back in rough braids. They were working near the barn, moving bales of hay from one side to the other. He didn't know how he hadn't noticed them before. Curious, Caleb walked toward them, unsure of what to expect. He had heard rumors about the women who lived on the farm before him, but they were just that, rumors. People said they were strange, that they were somehow connected to the land in ways that didn't make sense. Some even said they were witches, though Caleb wasn't one to believe in such things. Still, something about them made him uneasy. The eldest woman, Clara, was the first to notice him. She turned toward him with an expression that was hard to read, tough but not unfriendly. She was a bit older than Caleb, maybe in her 40s, with strong, muscular arms and a face that had seen years of hard work. Her eyes, though, were sharp, almost too sharp. Caleb could tell she was studying him, sizing him up. "You're the new owner, then?" she asked, her voice deep and steady. Caleb nodded. "Yes, I am. Caleb." Clara didn't smile, but she didn't frown either. She simply nodded and turned back to the hay bales. "We've been here for a long time. Long before you came. You've got a lot of work ahead of you." Caleb didn't know what to say to that. "I'm planning on fixing it up," he replied. "It'll take some time, but I think I can do it." The woman, Mira, who was standing beside Clara, looked over at him. She was younger than Clara, probably in her 30s, but she was just as tall and just as imposing. There was something about her, something in her eyes that seemed to say she knew things that Caleb didn't. "You're going to need help," Mira said, her voice calm, almost hypnotic. "You're not going to do it alone." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "I didn't think I'd need anyone else. I've done this kind of work before." "You can do the work," Mira replied, "but you can't do it without understanding the land. This place is different." Before Caleb could respond, the third woman, Lena, who was much younger than the others, stepped forward. She had a wild look in her eyes, as though she had been living off the land for too long. Her hair was tangled, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. There was something untamed about her. "Clara's right," Lena said, her voice low but with a sense of urgency. "You can't fix this place unless you know what it needs. We know this land. We've worked it, lived on it. We've been here for as long as anyone can remember, and you will need to understand it too if you want to make it yours." Caleb felt a chill run down his spine. He wasn't sure if it was their words or just the way they looked at him. It was like they were saying more than they were letting on, as if they were part of something larger, something he didn't fully understand. He tried to shake off the unease, but it lingered in his mind. He wasn't sure what it was about these women, but he felt like they knew something he didn't. As the evening drew on, the women went back to their work, and Caleb walked back to the farmhouse, his thoughts spinning. He couldn't help but wonder about them. What were they really doing here? Why had they stayed on this farm all these years, and why did it feel like they had some sort of hold over the place? Later that night, as Caleb sat alone in the quiet house, he heard the faint sound of footsteps outside. At first he thought it was just the wind, but then the door creaked open and Clara stepped inside. She didn't ask if she could enter. She simply did. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low but firm, "about what happens next." Caleb stood up from the table, unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean?" Clara didn't waste time. "You're here now, and you're going to be a part of this land, whether you want to or not. That's the way it works." Caleb frowned, unsure of what she was suggesting. "What does that mean?" Clara walked closer to him, her eyes never leaving his. "It means that you're going to have to sleep with us tonight." Caleb's eyes widened in surprise. He wasn't sure if he had heard her correctly. "What?" Clara's expression didn't change. "It's a tradition," she explained. "A way to bond with the land. You're not the first man to live here, and you won't be the last. But if you want to truly understand this place, you have to embrace it." All of it. Caleb stood there, speechless. He didn't know what to say. This wasn't what he had expected when he bought the farm. He didn't know these women, and yet here they were, asking him to join them in some strange, ancient custom that seemed to have nothing to do with farming. "I don't know if I can do that," Caleb finally said, his voice shaky. "I don't know what you're asking of me." Clara didn't respond right away. Instead, she just stared at him as if waiting for him to make a decision. The silence between them stretched on, thick and heavy. Caleb wasn't sure what to do. He had come here to escape his past, to find a new life. But now, standing in front of Clara, Mira, and Lena, he wasn't so sure anymore. Finally, Clara spoke again. "Think about it, Caleb. This land is ancient. It remembers everything. And if you want to truly make it yours, you need to understand that." With that, she turned and left, leaving Caleb alone in the quiet farmhouse once more. As he sat back down, Caleb felt a deep sense of unease settle over him. What had he gotten himself into? And more importantly, what was it that these women wanted from him? The night after Clara's strange request, Caleb found himself lying awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts raced, each one tumbling over the other, making it nearly impossible to focus. The silence of the farmhouse seemed louder than ever. Outside, the wind howled through the trees and the barn creaked, its old wood groaning in the cold night air. What did Clara mean by "sleep with us"? Caleb couldn't wrap his mind around it. It wasn't just the words. It was the mystery of it all. These women, Clara, Mira, and Lena, had lived on this farm for years. They were strong, independent, and mysterious. But there was something in their eyes, something hidden behind their words that Caleb couldn't quite understand. Why had they stayed here? What kind of power did they have over this land? And why had they come to him now? Caleb had never been one for superstition or folklore. He was a man of practical beliefs. He knew how to work the land, how to mend fences and repair roofs. But the feeling of unease had settled deep inside him. The farm seemed to be alive in a way he hadn't expected. He could feel it in the soil beneath his feet, in the wind that blew through the trees at night, in the way the air seemed to change as the sun set each evening. Around midnight, Caleb couldn't stay in bed any longer. He had to know more. He pulled on his boots and grabbed his coat. The cold air bit at his skin as he stepped outside, the ground hard with the frost of late autumn. He knew where he had to go, the barn. It was the place where the women spent most of their time. It was there that he might find some answers, even if those answers scared him. The barn was dark, but Caleb could hear voices echoing through the open doors. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the frozen earth. The figures of the women were illuminated by the soft glow of lantern light as they worked inside. The sight of them, tall and commanding, sent a shiver down his spine. Clara was the first to notice him standing in the doorway. "You came," she said simply, her voice calm but with an undercurrent of something deeper. Caleb nodded, his throat dry. "I don't understand," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why me? What do you want from me?" Mira, who had been silently watching him from the corner of the barn, stepped forward. "We don't want anything from you, Caleb. But this farm, this land, has been waiting for someone like you. It's not just about the work. It's about understanding." Lena, who had been stacking hay bales, paused and turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes were full of something Caleb couldn't name. "This place," she said softly, "has its own life, and it calls to those who will listen." The words felt heavy, like they were meant to mean something much more than Caleb could comprehend. His mind was spinning. Was this just the ramblings of women who had lived too long in isolation? Or was there something deeper going on here? Something he couldn't see? Clara walked toward him, her steps slow and deliberate. "You're here now," she said, "and you have a choice. You can stay and learn, or you can leave. But if you leave, this place will never be yours. You'll never understand it. You'll never feel its power." Caleb was silent, the weight of her words settling heavily on his chest. Could he really leave? The farm was the only place that had ever felt like it could be his, a fresh start. But now, with Clara's words echoing in his mind, he realized that it wasn't just about the land. It was about belonging to it, understanding its rhythms, its secrets, its history. "What is it you want me to do?" Caleb asked, his voice uncertain but filled with a newfound curiosity. Mira stepped closer, her expression softening. "We don't want anything from you, Caleb. What we ask of you is simple: just join us. Sleep with us tonight as part of the land. It's the only way you can understand it fully." Caleb felt his heart race. He didn't know what they meant by that, sleep with us. But the more he listened to them, the more he realized they weren't asking for anything physical. It wasn't about intimacy. It was something deeper, something rooted in tradition and connection with the earth. Clara placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder, her grip firm. "This land has been cared for by women like us for generations. We live together, work together, and bond with the earth together. It's how we've always done it. And it's how you'll learn to make this land yours." The words were still unclear to Caleb, but the sincerity in their eyes was unmistakable. He could sense that they weren't lying to him. There was something real here, something ancient, and if he wanted to succeed on this farm, he had to accept it. "I'll stay," Caleb said finally, the words feeling like a weight lifted off his chest. "I'll do it. I'll learn." Clara nodded, as if she had been waiting for him to say it. "Then come. The land is ready for you, and so are we." The three women led Caleb to a small room at the back of the barn, a room Caleb hadn't noticed before. It was simple, but there was a warmth to it that Caleb hadn't felt in the farmhouse. A soft glow from the lanterns filled the room, casting shadows on the wooden walls. The smell of hay and earth mixed with the scent of wood smoke. It was cozy, comforting even. As Caleb stood in the center of the room, the women gathered around him. There was no awkwardness, no tension. Just a calm, quiet understanding that Caleb was beginning to feel deep within himself. He wasn't just a stranger on this land anymore. He was becoming part of it. Clara, Mira, and Lena sat down around him, their presence enveloping him in a sense of peace. There were no words spoken for a long time, just the sound of the wind outside and the soft crackle of the lanterns. Caleb closed his eyes, trying to feel what they were talking about, this strange, powerful bond with the land. As the night went on, Caleb could feel something shift inside him. It wasn't just the air around him, it was something deeper, a feeling that grew stronger with every moment. He felt connected to the earth beneath his feet, to the barn, to the women sitting beside him. It was as though he was becoming one with the land. When the morning sun finally began to rise, Caleb opened his eyes. He felt different. The unease that had been gnawing at him for days was gone, replaced by a strange sense of clarity. The women had been right. To understand this land, he had to embrace it. Not just with his hands, but with his heart and soul. "How do you feel?" Clara asked, her voice gentle. "I don't know," Caleb replied, his voice filled with awe. "But I feel like I understand. Like I belong here," Mira smiled. "You do. The land has accepted you. And so have we." As Caleb stood up and looked out the barn door, the land before him seemed to glow in the soft morning light. It was his now. And he was no longer just a man working the farm. He was part of something much larger, something that would shape the rest of his life. The farm, with its secrets and its history, had finally claimed him.